Hello everyone, I hope you're doing very well. I'm back on the channel today to do a championship review this time of Game Week 5, where there were tons of goals, loads of incidents, and I'm also going to briefly, for some teams, going to be talking about the week they had, because this was the first week where there were 3 matches in 1 week. So I'm going to be discussing that and analysing the teams and see where each team are. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts about the championship so far in the comments below. Starting off with Burnley 3, Blackpool 3, a very entertaining game at Turf Moor. And for Burnley, it was a first start for Nathan Tella, and he got himself 2 goals, and it was a quick fire start for Burnley. Harwood Bellis, 2 long balls causing issues. The first one, it was knocked down eventually to Josh Brownhill, a phenomenal shot and goal from him. He's now playing a more advanced role for Burnley this season compared to last season when Burnley were in the Premier League. And I do suspect that Josh Brownhill will continue to add to his goal tally and perform very well for the Championship this season for Burnley, if he stays, that is. And then again, Harwood Bellis, another over-the-top through ball, long ball from him. This time Nathan Tella, really good first touch to chest it down and a really good finish from him. And at 2-0, Burnley were cruising and looked like they would comfortably win this game. But then, passing out from the back, Burnley lose the ball. I think really it was Murich's mistake mainly, because he's the one that can see the play in front of him. And what he needs to do is, when he receives that ball back, just go long. Either go long or switch it to Burnley's left-hand side. But instead, he kind of makes a poor pass to Josh Cullen, who tries to do a little trick and loses the ball. And then Theo Corberou, a great shot low into Murich's right-hand side to make it 2-1. And that gave Blackpool hope. But then Burnley scored to make it 3-1. And at that point, you're really thinking Burnley should really hold on for their first home win of the season. But then Shane Lavery scored, and then after that, Michael Appleton made a triple substitution that really changed the game. And they say that goals change games, but it wasn't just Lavery's goal, it was the fact that Michael Appleton brought on 3 new subs, and Blackpool applied the pressure. Eventually they scored, and then 3-3. You're thinking, Blackpool, can they go on and win it? But then 2 crazy red cards. For me, I think it was the right decision. I mean, what is Madsen doing? He completely lost his head. Like Joshua in the Usyk Joshua fight after the match, Ian Madsen also completely lost his head, barged into the Blackpool player, both players sent off, and then it finishes 3-3. I definitely think this is 2 points dropped for Burnley, especially when they were just 2-0 up, cruising, and they just gave a goal to Blackpool. But then even at 3-1, you're thinking, surely they should just hold out for their first win at Turf Moor, but that wasn't the case. But Blackpool, to be fair, they were good value for the win. I mean, if you look at the XG, according to Infogol, Burnley created an XG of 1.59 and Blackpool created an XG of 2.66. So, like I said, Blackpool, if anything, they arguably could have deserved the win, but a very entertaining game at Turf Moor. And I think overall, it was a good week for Blackpool. Despite conceding late on against Swansea at home, they overall had a decent week, and fair play to them. To come back from 3-1 down is impressive from Michael Appleton and his team. For Burnley, it is a worry that they haven't won at Turf Moor yet, but according to the data and also the eye test, Burnley are playing very well, and a lot of their new signings have settled in. Harwood Bellis looks very solid in defence. Nathan Tella already has 2 goals, and Scott Twine hasn't even got going yet for Burnley. So I think there's still a lot more to come from Burnley. So I wouldn't really worry about them if I was a Burnley fan myself. West Brom finally got their first win of the season, let alone at home, winning 5-2 against Hull City, and they were full value for it. And going into this game, Saimanish, the Hull City winger, I'm sorry if I butchered that name, he was out injured, and also Tufan early on in this game went off injured. Ryan Woods, the new signing from Blues, replaced Tufan. And really, a kind of similar theme to West Brom's games this season. West Brom completely dominated the game. They dominated possession and they dominated the stats. I mean, West Brom created an XG of 2.31. They had 7 shots on target and had 60, I think, 1% possession. And it wasn't they just kept the ball for possession's sake. They actually were ruthless in their attack, created loads of chances, and they look very, very good value for their win, finally getting their first win of the season. So West Brom look really good and dominant, and it could be a really exciting season for them. For Hull City, I still think it's been a really good game week for them, or week, sorry, personally, because, I mean, for example, Esteban, he looks like a really great signing. 5 games, 4 goals, 1 assist. He looks really good. Signing from the Portuguese league, Colombian, sure to be soon Colombian international at this rate. He looks like a really good signing, like I said. And Hull City, they played Burnley, West Brom and Norwich, playing West Brom away from home and Norwich away from home. No, sorry, Norwich at home where they won 2-1, and they played Burnley away and West Brom away. So to come away beating Norwich, drawing against Burnley and then losing this game, I don't think it's a total disaster for Hull. To me, that going into the season, they were the hardest team to predict. So the fact they've come away from this week playing really good teams, 2 newly relegated teams, and then West Brom, who will surely, at the very least, be in the top half, to come away, relatively okay, I think is pretty good for Hull City. Then we have Sheffield United 3, Blackburn Rovers 0. A totally dominant display from Sheffield United. They created an XG of over 4, which is phenomenal. While Blackburn, I'll get onto in a second, they created an XG of 0.09. So totally dominant from Sheffield United. I think it was Kadra's first start for Sheffield United, and he looked pretty decent, but really, it was the Iliman and Dye show. His first real game where he's come back and shown his quality again this season. Second goal, first goal a little bit scruffy, but his second goal was outstanding. Taking that ball on, driving at the Blackburn Rovers defence, an excellent finish from him. And like I said, Sheffield United completely dominated this game in the eye test and the stats, and they fully deserved the win and look very strong this season. While for Blackburn, after 3 wins in 3, they put in a really poor performance against Reading midweek. And then to react to that performance to Sheffield United, where, like I said, they created an XG of under 0.10, was really poor from their point of view. And yes, Sheffield United will be one of the best teams in the league this season, but still, they could have created a little bit more than basically nothing. So really poor from Blackburn Rovers, but phenomenal start for Sheffield United this season. If any game was going to finish 0-0, it was definitely Preston versus Watford, and it did. Preston now, they haven't scored in 4 games in the Championship. They've only scored once, that phenomenal goal away from home at Luton, Brad Potts, that acrobatic kick. That's the only goal they've scored. But then they've kept 4 clean sheets, which is just absolutely bananas. And no, actually it's 5. Sorry, my bad. It's the first time a Championship side has kept 5 clean sheets in the opening 5 games of a Championship season. So very strange from Preston. And from the outside looking in, I found it very strange that both Shay Evans and also Emile Rees were on the bench, and then you had DJ up front alongside Troy Parrott. Now, don't get me wrong, I think Troy Parrott could be a good player at this level. Last season at MK Dons, he was fantastic, so his next move was always going to be a Championship club. But to me, he did look isolated up front alongside DJ. I think DJ's better in that number 10 role or number 8 role with Emile Rees or Evans alongside Parrott. So very strange that Preston didn't play one of those 2 strikers alongside Parrott. Overall, I mean, the fact they're keeping so many clean sheets is brilliant from their point of view. And then for Watford, their midfield looks stronger with Kiembe and Hamza Chowdhury in there. I don't think Cleverley is as strong as either of those 2. So Watford's midfield looks better. But Dennis has obviously gone to Forest. No Ismail Assar after heavy links with a move away to Aston Villa. And João Pedro wasn't in the squad. Now, apparently that was because he's injured, but Watford definitely look way lighter going forwards without Sarr or João Pedro. I will say, though, that Esprilla, who started in the number 10 role, he is a very promising young player. At 18 years old, Colombian, he looks very good. He should have got an assist. It was an amazing pass to the Watford Spanish striker who went through one-on-one and then completely skied the shot. So, like I said, Watford really lack that presence up front without Sarr or João Pedro, but Asprilla does look like a really good young up-and-coming prospect for Watford. So overall, I mean, for Preston, it's really questionable because, it's great they're keeping all these clean sheets, but the fact they've only scored 1 goal in 5 is a concern. Now, for Preston's point of view, they either now keep keeping clean sheets, keep a solid defence, and then maybe the goals start coming, or maybe as they try to push forward to score more goals, they concede more goals. So I'll be really interested to see how Preston get on in the next few weeks. Then we have Reading 1, Middlesbrough 0, an excellent result from Reading. I'll talk about Middlesbrough in a second, but first of all, from Reading's point of view, a fantastic result from them. I mean, going into this game off the back of a phenomenal win at home against Blackburn Rovers, they didn't actually have to win necessarily, because going into the season, Reading's goal is to just stay up. Given that Paul Ince has a lack of experience as a Championship manager, Reading have a very, very thin squad and they can't buy anyone. I think most Reading fans will take 21st spot. So there wasn't too much pressure to perform against Middlesbrough after their very good win against Blackburn. But Reading, from the start, they just wanted it more than Middlesbrough. They were the better team in the first half, and a phenomenal goal from Fornan, an incredible strike to make it 1-0. And then after half-time, Reading basically just parked the bus and just said to Middlesbrough, OK, see if you can break us down. And to be fair, OK, Middlesbrough had the higher XG, but they didn't really create that many clear-cut chances. Reading's defence was just really solid, and they made so many blocks. Even when Clark, the youngster, came on at left-back, when Hutchinson got injured, he made a crucial block in the second half. So I don't think Middlesbrough did enough to win the game personally. I think Reading were good value for the win. And, at the beginning of the week, off the back of a 4-0 drubbing against Rotherham, a fellow relegation rival candidate, to then beat Blackburn in midweek 3-0 convincingly, and then beat Middlesbrough 1-0, two teams who will surely at the very least finish in the top half of the table. Back-to-back clean sheets, 4 goals, a fantastic performance from Reading. And it's just really positive that after 5 games, they've got 3 wins at home. I say it's positive because I'm a Reading fan. From my point of view, I just want Reading to stay up. And, the fact they've got 3 wins at home is just excellent because, in a relegation battle, draws are precious, but if you can convert them to wins, it just makes a massive, massive difference. So the fact they were able to hang on and keep a clean sheet against Middlesbrough was excellent. But from Middlesbrough point of view, so lethargic in the first half, really, really poor. Chris Wilder made 2 changes at half-time, bringing on Crooks and Watmore. And it did make a difference to an extent, especially Crooks. I think he was one of Middlesbrough's better players, and I'm surprised he didn't start. But again, in the second half, they just didn't do enough to really create any chances. But watching the game, it's clear to me that Lenihan at their centre-back is at the heart of everything good that Middlesbrough do. He was always talking throughout the whole game. He was strong, commanding in the air. He, for me, was Middlesbrough's best player. But like I said, they didn't really do enough to win the game. And it is a bit of a worry. But at the same time, the data does suggest that they are creating a lot of chances. And some of the goals Middlesbrough have scored this season have been some really, really beautiful patterns of play. So I wouldn't worry too much if I was a Middlesbrough fan. And also, there are more signings to come. I mean, today it was announced that Rodrigo Munoz is signed on a season loan from Fulham, which, looks like a fantastic signing. It gives Middlesbrough even more options going forward. So I wouldn't worry too much if I was a Middlesbrough fan. I would worry, though, if I was potentially a Stoke fan after their 1-0 defeat at home against Sunderland. Off the back of last season, Michael O'Neill was under some pressure from Stoke fans, and it was kind of up in the air as to whether he should be the Stoke manager going into the next season or not, but he needed a good start to the season, and he's not got that at all. It was first starts for Kilkenny and Tariq Fosu and Delap for Stoke, so it's not like Michael O'Neill hasn't been backed in the transfer window. And overall, Delap looked good up front. He didn't get too much service, but again, he put in an okay performance. I do think it's a real coup for Stoke to get Delap because he's a real up-and-coming young prospect from Man City. But Stoke, they didn't really do enough to win the game. But for Sunderland, it's a really good result from them. They didn't have many chances, but in Ross Stewart, they do have someone who I think is good enough for the Championship. A really well-taken finish from him. And overall for Sunderland, it's a mixed week. I think conceding late on against QPR was really disappointing. The Sheffield United performance, okay, they lost, but the fact they were down to 10 men for so long, made it 2-1 and almost snatched a point, I think it's a really positive performance from Alex Neil's men. And then to come away from Stoke to get a win was fantastic for them. It does look like they've taken to life in the Championship very well, and it doesn't look like so far that they're going to struggle. So that's a credit to Alex Neil and his team because, yes, Sunderland, have a really good set of young up-and-coming players, but their actual squad isn't that big. They've got a relatively thin squad, so Alex Neil started really well at Sunderland, so fair play to him. But for Stoke, like I said earlier, Michael O'Neill is under massive, massive pressure already. He needs to get a few wins on the board if he's got the faith of the Stoke fans going into the season. Another manager under massive pressure is Russell Martin after their home loss against Luton, and really Luton were the better team. Now, a lot of last season, obviously Luton finished in the playoffs, and away from home they were really effective, and it was the same on Saturday. Campbell, a really well taken goal from him. Luton were the better team, they created more chances, and in the second half Morris got his first goal for Luton, a really well taken finish from him. So fantastic result for Luton. After kind of mixed week really, losing to Preston, going down to 10 men in Bristol and losing against Bristol City at Ashton Gate. So to go away from home and convincingly beat Swansea, really, really positive for Nathan Jones and Luton Town. But for Russell Martin, you know, similar to Michael O'Neill and Stoke, last season they ended it relatively poorly. You know, Russell Martin let a lot of leads slip. I mean, the one that's really clear in my mind is lose from 4-1 down and then drawing 4-4 at the Medeski Stadium. It happened in midweek where they were 2-0 up, comfortable against Millwall, but then Millwall managed to get 2 late goals. I just think there's a naivety and fragility to Swansea, especially defensively, and Russell Martin really needs to turn it around. Look, I still think he's a really good fit for Swansea and their style of football and what their fans demand, but I do think Swansea just maybe need to add 1 or 2 senior players because they do look a little bit fragile and naive, especially defensively. Rotherham continue to make really good strides in the Championship. They're still unbeaten after their 1-1 draw away from home against QPR. A really well taken goal from Ogbene, his 4th already of the season, and he looks very comfortable at Championship level. But then QPR managed to get back into the game. A very well taken goal from Chris Willock. I mean, his stunning goal against Middlesbrough at home, where QPR won 3-2, that really got things going for QPR and Chris Willock. And Chris Willock has added to his goal tally again on Saturday. He is a phenomenal player, and I'm in no doubt that he will eventually play in the Premier League. It's just a case of when, not if, for him. But like I said about Rotherham, overall it's been a really, really good start to the season, and it was a good week. Amazing result against Reading, 4-0, very clinical, totally dominant in that match. And then they managed to get a draw midweek against Preston, keeping a clean sheet. And then they got a credible draw away from home against QPR. So a fantastic start of the season for Rotherham. And they needed a good start. You know, their fans needed hope in this season after so many poor campaigns in the Championship. The fact they've started this well is really promising from their point of view. For QPR, I mean, it's not been a great start to the season. Kind of a lot of controversy, not a lot of controversy, but a little bit of controversy with the fact that their previous manager, Mark Warburton, left in the circumstances that he did. Mick Beale's come in and he's not got to a great start to the season, but, you know, you think back to the beginning of the week, a good draw away from home against Sunderland, really. Sunderland looked like a decent Championship side, so to come from 2 goals down to draw 2 was pretty decent. But then, even though they were dominant against Blackpool, they did lose 1-0, and then in this game, they were probably expecting to win this game, but they couldn't get over the line. Still though, I think QPR still got a lot to look forward to this season. They've got a lot of young players. Their front 4 looks very strong, you know, Roberts, Chair, Willock and Dykes. I mean, that's a really good front 4 in the Championship. A concern for them, though, is the fact that Johansson got injured. Wait to see the extent of his injury, but if he's out injured for a long time, that is a massive blow for QPR. Blues 0, Wigan 1 in a game where, I mean, it's a pretty damaging result for Blues, given that they were down, or Wigan were down to 10 men for so long. It's never a red card, by the way. Jukovic completely dives. I mean, it's a shocking decision from the referee. With that, you've got to be absolutely sure that the players brought him down, and yeah, really, really bad decision from the referee. But the fact that Blues were a man up for so long in this game and they couldn't capitalise is really poor from their point of view. I mean, they say, oh, it's harder to play against 10 men. I'm not buying that at all. You know, at this level, being a man up, Blues should have won this game, but they couldn't really create that many good chances, the best being Cosgrove, a good shot from him, and then an excellent save from, I think it was Jones, the goalkeeper. But then Wigan, I think they created the better of the chances, and then really it was the substitutions of Wyke and Broadhead from Liam Richardson that changed the game. Wyke running down the left channel, controls the ball really well, plays it into Nathan Broadhead, an excellent finish from him, and Wigan win 1-0. And, you have to say, Wigan actually do have good options going forward. Ashley Fletcher didn't play. I think he's proven at this level. I think Nathan Broadhead will show that he can play at this level. So I think overall, an excellent result for Wigan because, this could be an early relegation 6-pointer. Surely Blues will be down there. And then historically, teams promoted from League One have struggled in the Championship. So the fact that Wigan got over the line and got the win was excellent from their point of view. For Blues, not been a great week. They only lost 1-0 in Wales, but they were completely outplayed by Cardiff. And then midweek, credible draw against Watford. Watford are a decent team. But then to not win against Wigan when they were a man up for so long is really poor from Blues' point of view. Then finally, going to quickly talk about Friday night when Norwich comfortably beat Millwall 2-0. I think the main talking point here is the fact that Josh Sargent has now moved from a winger position out wide to playing as a number 9 in a centre forward. And for a while, Josh Sargent has wanted to play as a centre forward, but of course, Norwich have Teemu Pukki who's been occupying that spot. But Josh Sargent looks very, very good as a centre forward. And when Teemu Pukki comes back into the side, he's probably either going to be on the bench or playing alongside Josh Sargent, because surely Dean Smith won't move Josh out wide again, because Josh looks really good as a centre forward. So a really important result for Norwich, and overall a good week from them. They lost against Hull City, but relatively convincingly beat Huddersfield. I think it was 2-1 in the end. And then to back that up with back-to-back home wins against Millwall, a good Championship side is really good from Norwich's point of view. So overall, a positive week for Norwich, and actually a positive week for Millwall, really. Coming back to beat Coventry City, very, very good result from them. And then it's, no mean loss on them, the fact that they lost against Norwich, because Norwich are a relatively decent side. So fair play to both Norwich and Millwall. It was good weeks from them. I've not mentioned Bristol City or Cardiff because they play it on the Sunday, but I think no matter who wins, overall it's been an okay week for both teams, because Bristol City, they beat Luton midweek, a good side, especially off the back of last season, and then Cardiff, totally dominant against Blues last week, and then in midweek they got a credible draw away from home against West Brom. So no matter what happens in that game, really, both teams have had a relatively good week. Although, I will acknowledge the fact it's a 7-side derby and both teams won't want to lose, to each other. So despite that, it's been a relatively good week for both Bristol City and Cardiff. But I hope you enjoyed that Championship review. Let me know what you thought of the Championship in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And I hope to see you all in the next video. Thank you very much.